Meanwhile, Fox News Channel has decided to stop showing those deranged videos and images from Cho's manifesto unless it's warranted. But we did want to point out the return address on the package that was originally sent to NBC. It was signed Ishmael. Words very similar to Ismail X reportedly scrawled on the shooter's arm. Now, my next guest says that he took a Muslim name to register his hatred of America and what it stands for. Jerry Bowyer is a columnist for the National Review. Also with us, former New York City Detective Bo Dietl, who says law enforcement officials are taking this particular lead very, very seriously. Why, Bo?
Well, you know, when you first see it on his arm, he obviously put it in there. Until I saw this raging video that everyone else saw, you know, there was a very strong possibility that he could have been a Muslim extremist. He could have been following the Quran or whatever. But listening to the rage where he goes to rich people, then he goes to Christians, then he goes with gold chains, Mercedes, he's a total nut from that. And when that chief of the state troopers from Virginia say they didn't learn anything, I learned a lot of looking at that video, and I learned one thing, that the man was so totally deranged from where he was going. He was going one side, back, forth, and there was nothing really focused on a Muslim back. So to put this as a Muslim fundamentalist, I think would be very wrong now, because this, in fact, is not what it appeared to be.
Jerry, what do you think?
Well, we have no idea if he's a Muslim fundamentalist, but he inscribed a Muslim name on his arm. And put a Muslim name on the return address for that package that he sent. And he did that at a moment of extreme significance in his life between the two shootings. So I think to just kind of write that off from this.
Well,
English
we don't know
name.
when he put the name on his arm, right? That could
no, we don't know. We don't know that.
Right?
But we know when we know when the package was sent. And
so what does that tell you then, Jerry? If that was the case, what does it tell you?
It tells me that he's got a story in mind. I mean, there's the story of Ishmael, the son of Abraham. Abraham is the father of the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims, and he had a son named Ishmael. That's the Hebrew pronunciation, Ismail in Arabic. This is the son who was disinherited. Ishmael was the outcast. Isaac, the later son, got all the wealth. There's the obsession with wealth. And then Ishmael got driven out into the desert where he became a great warrior. Given how much that fits this man's view of wealth, and given how it describes the way he acted, it seems to me to be almost incomprehensible that this name didn't mean something, that it wasn't significant.
Flip it around, and what about the use of videos much like some of the assassins we've seen out in the Middle East?
Yeah, you know, yesterday, and looking at that, and I got the same information that we're just talking about now, I'd be talking differently on the show. But looking at what I saw on those videotapes, I think this psychopath, if he could have put a swastika in his head, he would have said that he was a Nazi too. I mean, he's so much all over the board that he just didn't know what else to do. And this Ishmael is the son of Abraham. He went out to the desert, which became Saudi Arabia. It is a fact.
But it does show an element of sophistication. If Jerry's right, he's not just a straight lunatic. He's a lunatic with some strategy.
I think part of the investigation by the detectives and the state troopers and the FBI there are going to be to find out if he had an involvement, if he did study this Muslim stuff, but also part of the investigation is going to show with the tripods that, in fact, he was able to videotape himself. They're going to find stuff with a search warrant. My problem with this whole thing is we've seen it now today. The copycats are out there now. They watch this.
Indeed, they are.
Yeah, but my respect to NBC, they should have got a federal subpoena and a court order immediately to Virginia State Police to cease and not show these things, because as far as I'm concerned, you gave too much credence to this murdering nut.
All right, Jerry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, Neil, you make a good point. He was intelligent. He was an intelligent man. Just because you're insane, just because you're evil, just because you lack the ability to relate to other people doesn't mean that you don't have cognitive ability. His teachers described him as an intelligent young man. So it wouldn't be surprising if he knew references like Ishmael, whose father Abraham had an axe and destroyed the idols. If you've read his plays, I don't know if anyone has, but I've read the plays that are on the Internet. Not well written, but there are literary references. I've found 4 references, subtle references to Shakespeare, for instance. So this is a guy who was really thinking about how he was talking and how he was writing. For instance, we've seen over and over again his manifesto, you know, you'll never wash the blood from your hands. Well, an English lit major says that. That's from Macbeth. The play was named Macbeef. This is a guy who's trying to make certain kind of points using his literary education.
And I read your column, it was very well written column, Jerry, on that issue. But what if you're trying to tie in things that he never intended, that he just accidentally sounds like a genius.
Well, that might be. He might have lucked into some Shakespearean references, but he put Ismael on his arm. He put Ishmael, the different spelling, on the return envelope, which means that we're talking about Ishmael, that character. Because there were some other theories on the internet that there's a rap group named Ismail, and there's all of those theories are now blown out of the water because he used both spellings of the name. Neil, I don't really have any significant doubt here that he had some identification with the son who became sort of a center in Islamic culture, the son who was passed over, who didn't get the wealth, who became an outcast and a warrior.
Well, the play to which you alluded did refer to a stepson who was actually murdered by a abusive father, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
Where do you think this goes, Bo? The more we now know and uncover, and I know you're not happy that NBC releases, but we get further dimensions of this guy and connections maybe to terrorist groups, real or imagined. What do you think?
You know, the problem comes at the forefront here is he had psychiatric observation with professional people that dealt with him. You know, we all worry about the ACLU. I mean, they're the big babies out there that worry about the HIPAA, about people's records being brought up front. But, I mean, this is a perfect case. This person should have been put on some kind of a list. We have to build off this because what you see is going around in the United States is going to continue. You have other kids that are walking around in these college campuses that are loners, walking around like Night of the Living Dead, hate everything, hate everybody, and there's a lot of things going on. This is now focusing them that they could be a hero and they could do something better.
That is something we're going to explore. Bo, final word on this. So, Jerry, I want to thank you. By the way, Jerry's writing can be found on our FoxNews.com website. You got to read this because it's actually very, very well reported, and Jerry did a great job with it. Jerry, thank you again.
Thank you, Neil.